Hey YouTube. Oh, I'm gonna go for a little walk here. I cut the rest of the pine I had into quarter sawn boards, and they all came out pretty nice. And I says to my wife, I don't know where to put all this stuff. And she says to me, and I told you she was pretty sharp. She says to me, why don't you put the lumber where you're going to use it? I never thought of that. There's a big room up in the house I'm building, and I didn't realize that I could put the lumber there and store it because that's where I am going to use it. But when she said, because I'm all about construction, when she said to me, put it where you're going to use it, that made sense to me. But until I kept thinking, well, I got to plane this and I'm going to do it in my garage, and that was causing me some mental freaking breakdown or something. But anyway, sometimes certain words have to be said to us to make us react. And for me, anything that has to do with construction, planning, and saving money makes sense to me. And that's how, that's what she did, and that's what she was able to, make me understand that we don't need another building at the moment. On another little note here, guys, I don't know if you've ever read anything about Sherlock Holmes, and I'm not talking about the movies that they make. I'm talking about the literature. These are beech trees here, and if you look closely, you'll see in Sherlock Holmes there's a story. There's 52 short stories, and one of the stories is called The Copper Beeches. And every now and then, when I was teaching, I would have the students read something, because I couldn't get them to read. So I'd have them read Sherlock Holmes, and when I would have them read, I'd ask them questions about the different stories. And one freaking kid says to me, yeah, the beaches, the Copper Beeches were the story about them going on vacation to the beach. Well, to you, maybe it doesn't seem funny to you, but it's pathetic. Because the Copper Beeches is a story about a mansion where the driveway up to the mansion is filled with these beech trees, and they're humongous. And I have a lot of beech at the lower end of property here, and they're not good for anything that I would want to use them for. I know they use them for pallets and stuff. Here's beech on its way to turning. These are still green, little green and yellow there yet. But copper is the color that they get right before they fall off. And the beech lasts, usually you see the beech trees fall off right after you rake up the spring leaves. Then they fall off. But that's more beech right there in here. But anyway, the Copper Beeches is a story, like I said, about a mansion. It's a mystery story. That's what Sherlock Holmes is about. The guy who wrote it, Arthur Conan Doyle. I really appreciate the guy's writing, and it's about a century old at this point. But we need to get our people to start doing some reading and understanding things, and it's pathetic that the kids, you talk to them today and they talk to you about, what's the latest trending thing on the internet. Granted, there's no doubt about it. In my lifetime, the greatest change of things I've ever seen was when I did not have to have a secretary sit there and type out a 12-page contract. She could just push 3 buttons and it would print out by itself. I think that was the greatest turnaround in my business career. But anyway, it's gotten to the point where our children are abusing the daylights out of this, I believe. And we need to try and fix this. I'm telling you this from a teacher's standpoint, not from a businessman, but yet, if they don't learn this stuff, they become part of the problem instead of the solution. But I don't want to go into a lot of politics, because I'm not really about that. I don't care who the heck does what, because, I just work hard enough to overcome it. Anyway, I just wanted to make a little video about these Copper Beeches. I thought it's so beautiful right now that it doesn't make sense to not enjoy some of this that we have, At the one end of my property, I have a little range here where I do clay birds and go out that way with them and keep up on the practice with them, because it helps me when I go hunting grouse with the dog. But Yeah, I've always liked it down in this little spot here. This is actually what has been bare like this. I don't know what it's been, you know, years ago, but before I bought it, it was bare, and it's still bare, and I kind of like this little area. In the summertime, it gets filled completely with leaves up there, and you can't see nothing down here. So, yeah, it's just one thing I do. I want to enjoy this before it's over, because it doesn't take long for it to be over. I also wanted to say that I had gotten a comment from one of the subscribers, or maybe he's not even a subscriber, I don't know, but I got a comment from somebody, and what it said on it was that he would like for me to explain how to use the formulas for the time value of money. And I had said that I will do that, and believe me, it's going to be boring when I do it, to those of you who are not, you know, up on math, but it's a good principle. There's a lot of good principles behind it. But before I can actually do the thing on how you use the formulas, and they're not that difficult, I need to explain some things about, you know, the problems that you come up with in business and what that's about. Basically, just to get started a little bit, the time value of money talks or is a subject that is about how much something costs, okay? So that, and this is a true cost. In other words, if you buy a bulldozer, most bulldozers or heavy equipment is good for 10,000 hours. Okay, that's the standard figures. So if you figure something, if you figure out the fuel for 10,000 hours, the wear and tear for 10,000 hours, all of the repairs you'll make in 10,000 hours, and you know, anybody with some experience can figure that out. You know what's wearing down on your car, and so do people who run heavy equipment know what's going to wear down. So you have to take all that stuff into consideration. You also take into consideration things that most people do not think about. And this is where doing favors for people can become a burden. And that subject is called depreciation. Now I'll explain more about depreciation as we go through my videos, the series, or whatever you want to call this thing. But depreciation basically is, for those of you who don't know, is basically the deterioration of something over time. Okay, that's depreciation. The depreciation means it's the money end. So just like you know, your clothing wears out after you wash it, and it depreciates in use. Well, in money and in business, you have to account for depreciation of things. So when I had mentioned a little bit ago that the neighbors don't understand that every time I start the motor, that what's happening is that you know, there's life coming out of it. That's what's known as depreciation. That's what I was talking about. So it's important that we understand depreciation, because when you do favors for people, it's cost you. It doesn't matter, you know, and now this is from a business standpoint. Believe me, I have good ethics, but the ethics conflict with good business sometimes. Sometimes you think you have good business ethics, but your ethics are actually hurting you. And the way I can explain this is, you know, like if my neighbor comes over and says to me, "Can you cut up this one log? I want to make a table." Yeah, I cut up the log. Now, I'm only talking sawmill stuff here, but believe me, I can do all kind of things. Everything from welding, body work, fix cars, build houses, whatever. Plumbing, electrical. The thing is yes, you can do it. Now, you know, it's hard to figure out how much to charge for stuff. But when you don't charge anything, okay, and like say in business, let's just take something simple, like say a Milwaukee drill. I love Milwaukee drills. I don't care for their saws, but I think their drills are fantastic. So you take a Milwaukee drill, you know, can you drill a hole here? Can you drill a hole there? And the next thing you know, your drill's wore out and you need money for another drill. If you haven't sat down prior to buying the drill and think about how all those tools depreciate over time, then you're only kidding yourself. You know, that's how you stay in business, by knowing how much things cost and how much they'll depreciate in time. It's an important subject and topic that is, believe me, not very well used by most business people. Now, if you buy heavy equipment, you'll find out that Caterpillar, for instance, has a really nice program to teach you how to charge for the heavy equipment. And naturally, it, you know, has in it parts of the software that talk about repairs and also you know, replacement of equipment over time. And who better to do that than the people who sell the equipment? The problem is that if you're the type of person like I am and you take extra good care, you know, guys, I live at a place called the Endless Mountains, and if I were to look level from where I'm at, I would hit the ground there. So just to give you an idea, that's like 15 feet above my freaking head. That's why I'm huffing and puffing here. But anyway, who better to do that than Caterpillar, right? I mean, they wrote a program to teach people how to charge for their equipment, and they're the ones who benefit because you got to buy Cat parts, you know, you buy Cat filters, and you have to be able to replace the equipment somewhere down the line. Whenever you see somebody who buys Cat equipment and then all of a sudden buys Komatsu equipment, you know that somewhere along the line they didn't do the right calculating or save the money for the work that they had been paid for. And this is what happens with a lot of people. Looks like there's one single car coming down the road here after all of this time. I don't know, it's probably one of my neighbors. Yeah, so anyway, I forgot what I was saying there. People who, with the Cat stuff, you know, if you don't charge enough money, and you end up, first you had a Cat D8, now you're going to buy a 155 Komatsu because you can't afford the Cat, it's chances are you haven't listened or followed the program that Cat was giving you, or you're just throwing your money away somewhere. You know, you're not really keeping track of how you spend money. A lot of times people see extra money in their account at the end of the month and they think, oh, well, that's extra, so we'll spend that. Well, you know, when you talk about the time value of money, 99% of the time you're talking about, you're figuring out a profit that someone who's investing in you, whether it be yourself or not, you're figuring out a profit that somebody is going to want on their investment. So like if you invest in stock, if you read your portfolio and you follow the meetings that they have, you'll find out that these stock guys, you know, try very hard to give people some money. Now some of them don't, but some of them are really good at it, and you got to watch which ones they are. Now I'm not here to give stock information, I'm just telling you this is how, you know, things go. But yeah, if you can learn to use that software, like especially you guys who have heavy equipment, use the software, not just the software for figuring out jobs, but actually use the software. And that's another thing, you know, when it comes to the computers and stuff, one of the things that I really hated about it, like say with my contract, I had a 12-page contract, and when it got to the point where the contract was put onto a disk finally, and I'm talking floppy disk back in the early 80s, we were able to take that and print out them and just write the people's name in to be able to go ahead and do our thing. The problem with that is that when the secretary had the slightest bit of change that had to take place, it didn't happen, or the words became jumbled, muffled, mumbled, whatever. You'd read a paragraph and it totally didn't make sense because somebody needed to make a change in it and they didn't read it to change it. So not only do you have that in the written contract, but you also have that in drawings. Like say you have a drawing, like for instance I have a drawing of the house that I am building, Okay, so I have this drawing. It tells everything about the house, everything down to the colors and stuff like that. And what you're looking at there is, you know, this is like a pictures of words. You could say it's a drawing that everybody can universally understand what I'm saying by a picture. Problem is, you get these architects who are young. They're not thinking, they're not reading, they're not looking at everything, and engineers as well. And what they do is they copy and paste things. They'll copy a drawing and paste it onto a new drawing, only to find out that nothing they've copied and pasted is a part of the project you're working on. Now, a lot of people do this, and a lot of guys do this just so they can get the paperwork out there, just so they can get the plans done, so they can get their money. I'm telling you that that's not the way to do things. And when you see that, you know, you'll see drawings where they'll copy and paste, and you can't even tell that they've done it anymore. You used to be able to tell. Nowadays, you can't tell. The computers have gotten so sophisticated at it. But anyway, they copy and paste stuff that is not part of that new project. And, you know, then people end up reading that. And it's because I do read the blueprints from page to, you know, from front page to back, I know that this is happening. And it's a waste of my time to have to read those blueprints over about things that have nothing to do with what I'm doing. For instance, I'll give you an example. Like, let's say you're building a road somewhere, and there is nowhere where you're going to cross a stream. Well, because this contractor, or this architect I should say, was making these drawings, he'll copy and paste pages of stream crossings and how you have to handle a stream crossing. It's a waste of my time to have to read this, but I read it because I want to know what it says, just in case something, you know, I have to put money out for something. But that's the type of thing where we have become lazy. And that's why people, you know, end up going broke. Not because there's a stream crossing in there when there isn't, but because there's something else in there that they haven't sat down and read about, only to find out, holy God Almighty, we have to do this? I didn't know we had to do that. Well, it's in black and white. Just because it's not letters and it's a picture, I mean, most people can understand pictures. But anyway, this is how all relates to the time value of money. Because the time value of money dictates how much money a person can expect at the end of the time to either have on hand for repairs, have as a profit, have on hand for insurance. And that's another thing, insurance costs, you know. You don't realize how that insurance is part of the deal. What I used to tell people when I worked for them, I said this very plainly. I said, when I work for you, you will pay for me, my wife, and all of my kids, and everything else, dog, cat, or telephone bill, light bill, whatever I have, you're paying for while I work for you. Now, naturally, when you have a couple crews and you break that down, it's less and less for the customer when you're bigger. But the thing is you still have other problems that you have to make sure you're paying for, and the costs really don't change. People just think they change. Last year I planted, this past year, my grandson helped me make these boxes, and I planted potatoes. My wife and I just dug them up the other day. We got a 5-gallon bucket. I put 10 potatoes in here, little round potatoes about yay big. I got a 5-gallon bucket of potatoes out of this one, and then I have another one down here. I got a 5-gallon bucket of potatoes down there, and they're Yukon Gold. I don't know if you ever ate them, but I like them. They taste pretty good. So, yeah. So, like I say, I will go into this time value of money thing, but I'm not going into it without making you listen to all this other stuff, because if you know these things that I'm talking about, you'll understand better why I use these formulas. If you don't understand these things, you won't. So, again, like, you buy equipment, I don't care if it's a telephone. If there's maintenance, like you need a new battery, if there's surcharges, you know, whatever the charges are per month, if you have a plan like that, or if you buy minutes, I don't care how you do it. You know, if you break phones because you're doing rough work, you need to account for that. All of it. If you have to have insurance on something, like if you have vehicles, trucks and all, you have to have insurance. I had such a fleet of trucks that it got to the point where I literally put up a bond of my own money so that the state would give me the okay on my own auto insurance, because it was just costing me too much to have somebody else insure me. So I had my own money put away, but I still had to, you know, you still need that money back. That money can't just sit there, it has to be growing. So these are things, guys, that you need to understand. So again, you get depreciation, you have insurance costs. All those things with the time value of money can be added in on something like a vehicle. They can be added in, and they can be assessed for value over a period of time. That's what the time value of money is about. How much is something going to cost me over a period of time? And once you know that, that helps you to not lose money if you're going into business. And I'll tell you what, you don't have to be in business to do this. If you do this with your own cars and stuff, and you start recognizing things, I'll give you a perfect example. This is so stupid, it's almost pathetic to have to talk about it, but here's a very good example. The other day, one of the guys on the internet says to me, you know, what does your wife say about all the sawdust? Well, I'm going to tell you what my wife says about the sawdust. She doesn't freaking like it. However, if you look down there, I built, let me just zoom in here. This little room from here over, right there, is a mud room. So I'm allowed in there. But in the rest of our house, and it doesn't matter who comes in, we don't care who they are, my wife doesn't, we take our shoes off to walk in the house. Now here's how we both look at that. If the carpeting in the front room where you come in the main door, if that carpeting costs us $3,000 to put it in, and we let people walk in there with their shoes, dirty shoes, you know, matting the carpet down constantly with shoes or whatever, it'll take less time to have to replace that carpeting than it would if we just simply vacuum it regularly, take our shoes off, and watch what we're doing in there. Don't be spilling nothing. Believe me, that may seem like a trivial thing, and you may not care, and you may never even thought of it, but that's why a lot of people are broke. That's why you see houses that are broken down, they're not repainted, the windows aren't repaired. These are from people not sitting back and realizing, you know what, I really can't afford an iPhone. What I need to do with that $700 is put that away for a freaking new roof in 5 or 10 or 20 years. They don't think about that, because we need self-gratification today, and we need it now. That's not how life is. That's not how it should be. And I'm going to tell you from experience that if I was to live my life like that, I would never be able to afford the things I have. And I can afford whatever I want. This is not bragging. This is a fact. And I deserve to say it because I've worked so hard to achieve it. This is what the youth need to do. And if you don't do it and you're in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, you already know what I'm talking about. You feel like you're in a trap. You don't have to stay in that trap. You can get out of it, but you got to have a partner that's willing to go with you. Okay? If your wife is a spender and you're not, good luck on that one. So you both have to think the same way. And if you're both trying to give all you can to the kids and you don't teach them how to spend money, you know, wisely, and how to figure out what things are going to cost, well, you're just going broke. I mean, I've watched my own kids make these same mistakes. They buy iPhones. Oh, the latest iPhone is out. This one is pink and it does this. Oh my God. Okay, fine. Not that I don't like electronics. Like I said in the beginning of my video, it's one of the best things ever happened to me. But I don't buy a computer every week just because somebody says I should. I buy them when they wear out. And even a computer, you can sit down and figure out when is the right time to do this. Well, how should I charge for my computer? I actually have it figured out how much to charge when I make an AutoCAD drawing. Not just because, oh, this is what somebody else charges. I sat down and figured out, why should I charge this much? And that's what you do. So, alright guys, it looks like I caught my breath. So, I'm going to show you one thing here with my greenhouse. You ain't going to believe these freaking tomato plants in here. I know one of the guys had a thing about tomato plants I saw, and they were pretty nice. But I got to show you some tomato plants on steroids. Check out these tomato plants. It's 12 feet from the floor where I'm standing to that joist. That's another 3 feet to the peak. So 12, 13, 14, 15 feet, and some of them are hanging back down again. So these are tomato plants on steroids, and this year we did get a good crop. Now she just cleaned them all off because it's been cold here, and I don't want to have to heat this thing. There's one she missed. But yeah, look at the size of that. Now these shorter ones here, these are called indeterminate. And these are, I mean, those are called determinate. That means, you know, they can be determined how high they're going to get. The ones on this side are indeterminate, and these suckers just went berserk. So, guys, I guess I'm done talking for today. This is broccoli. We're trying to get some broccoli before winter. So, thanks for listening. And if you're interested, sooner or later that video is going to come up about the time value of money and actually how to use those things. And I'll do it in a, you know, like demonstrate something that's in real life that we can all relate to. Have a good one, guys. Bye.